If we choose not to stand under the sacrifice of Jesus, then there is nothing to withhold God's justifiable wrath on us. Jesus is the perfect extension of God's mercy. I mean, I hear, like, again, I totally hear what you're saying. It's just, to me, it sounds like God is at war with himself, and he's like, my tendency is wrath. My tendency is anger. My tendency is to want to punish you and to want to destroy you for being against me and for defying me and disobeying me. And so that I don't act on who I inherently am, I'm going to extend my son, and he's going to die on the cross. And so if you live under his covering, then you won't get my wrath. You won't get the punishment that you deserve for doing the things that you've done. It's like, if you're a Christian on that side of Christianity, then it's like, well, we got the answer. We found it. We got Jesus. We're going to heaven. But if you're not, there's just no motivation whatsoever, other than fear being the motivating factor here to go towards Christianity. But that's the problem, is because a lot of people have converted or gone to Christ or Christianity out of fear, and then years and years later of developing this cycle and this lifestyle of constantly being motivated by fear, it backfires. And so I think there's this problem with that root of theology, in that it and you could say, I guess you could say, that, well, God's inherent desire, God inherently is love, and he loves us so much that he wants us to be perfect, because perfection would mean complete happiness, complete joy, all of that. But we messed up. And so, since we messed up, if we have any sin in our life, if we are not perfect at all, if we mess up once, then he turns right back into that completely wrathful, angry God. Oh, I want you to be perfect so bad because there's so much happiness and perfection. And it's like, well, he created us as his kids. It's like it doesn't sound like a loving father, and it doesn't sound like there's any room for growing. It doesn't sound like there's any room for allowing yourself to fail, to mess up, so that you can grow, which, we've talked before, which is why sin needs to be redefined. You can learn from success, but you mostly learn from failure. And so, if there's absolutely no room for failure, then how do we grow? How do we evolve? How do we become better human beings at what how do we better humanity? So I mean, there's a lot in that, and we've talked about it plenty, but there's such this. I just have a really hard time with all of that, as as why I'm talking about this. It's not adding up, and I just see this epically huge chasm where it's like something's missing here. If God exists, we're missing something. Because if he does exist, and if Jesus, the gospel, and all of that is real, it's the most beautiful story in human history. But the problem is everything that I just said. And it's like, who would want to be under a God like that? Who would want to serve a God like that? And would a God of love really be like that? So, yeah. It's just one big question, and it doesn't seem to be adding up to any answers other than circular reasoning and philosophy, and less spiritual practice and actual experiencing, which changes people's lives. So, yeah.